I grew up in a conservative Christian home. There was one way. God was the final judge, and I was probably in trouble based on how, just not being perfect and not doing everything right. But boy, my experience, the unconditional love that I experienced, how do I put into words being held in the arms of God? Before the accident, I was a red personality, driven career guy. I mean, I was running my own ad agency. We were winning a lot of big awards, and it was kind of a game of, make the team, get the job, get the girl, get the car, get the house. And I was also very judgmental. My near-death experience was associated to the crash. It was a single car rollover. The whole family was in the car, and I was banged up really bad. Both my legs were crushed. My left leg was amputated above the knee. My back was broken, but the spinal column not damaged. My rib cage was crushed. My lungs collapsed. My right arm almost torn off. The seatbelt cut through me and ruptured all my insides. But it was at that moment, and I didn't even realize the injuries, but it was at the darkest moment. I knew I couldn't move. I was losing consciousness. I was also very aware that both Tamara, my wife, and Griffin, my youngest son, were gone. I was aware at the scene that they did not make it. My older son, who was 7 years old, was crying hysterically, and that was the moment where I lost consciousness. Suddenly, there was this calm, and I felt light. It felt like tangible light came and surrounded me, like I was surrounded in light. I rose above the scene of the accident, and suddenly I was fine. The pain was gone. I was able to breathe, and I was even wondering, well, what's going on here? All of a sudden, I realized that I was not alone. My wife, who I knew was deceased at the scene of the accident, was there with me. And I don't often talk about this because it's difficult. What took Tamara's life in the accident was head trauma. So when I say suddenly she was there beautiful, perfect, everything was okay. She was not injured. She was glorious. And yet she was the one giving the message, you've got to go back. Can't stay here, you've got to go. Here I am looking at the woman I love more than life, but I've got a little boy crying in the backseat of that car, and I've got to go back. As soon as I made that decision to come back, that's when I found myself wandering around the hospital, like moving freely. My spirit was out of my body. And this is what shifted me probably forever, as I was seeing, the doctors, the nurses, the patients, the families of the patients, but I was really seeing them. I wasn't looking at, oh, wow, look, there's a heroin addict. Well, that's their own fault. They made those bad choices. I was seeing everyone as these glorious, divine, perfect beings and realizing, wow, look what they've taken on in their life experience and how beautiful and how courageous and how powerful they are because of it. The heroin addict, but also the saintly grandmother, and just all of a sudden we were all in this together, having a different, unique experience, surrounded in unconditional love, and I was seeing it clearly without judgments, and that's what was cool. I eventually came to a body, a man laying on the gurney that I didn't feel anything from, which I found was very odd given the profound things I'd been experiencing. So I stepped closer to look, and that's when I realized, oh, that's me. But that wasn't me. I was having this incredible experience, but that was my body. That was the skin suit that I'd been having this experience in, and I was really quite overcome with sadness because I knew I had to get back in. But my body was an absolute wreck. It was as natural as the thought. I mean, I've realized our intentions are so powerful because I thought, how am I going to get back in? But it didn't have to figure out how. And it was very painful to go back in. I mean, it felt like a lead, blankets had been, it was very heavy, it was very dense. And then, of course, all the physical pain from the injuries, but also the emotional pain and trauma. The guilt, the regret, the absolute panic of the bereavement and losing half the family and what had happened, and also the fear of where is my surviving son and is he okay? And I was in the hospital for almost 5 months. So I was in ICU for, I mean, 2.5, almost 3 months. And yes, I was on a lot of morphine. Gosh, I had a self-admin button, which the only thing that worked on me was my one left hand, but I would admin that morphine until it just knocked me out. And it was a long haul in the hospital. The interesting thing for me is the two profound experiences. The second most profound happened at the end of my hospital stay. So I'll never forget them. No matter how much morphine or what I went through, the spiritual things are like yesterday. I don't remember the timelines sometimes of surgeries or what happened or what order, but I knew when I left my body at the scene of the accident, and there was no morphine there. That was right at the scene. And then the second most profound experience was at the end of my hospital stay, after I was out of ICU, out of surgical recovery. I was actually in the rehabilitation unit and was only taking some Tylenol for pain. But I went back into those realms. I felt all that light again. I felt that rush of light surrounding me, and then that rise above the hospital bed. I thought, oh wow, I know what this is. I felt this before. Suddenly the pain was gone, and this time the light went away, and I was in the most incredible, beautiful place. And the word I use now is I was home. You know, I had always talked about heaven or the other side, but boy, this was home. I began to run. The strange thing is it felt very physical. It's like I could feel the ground under my feet. It felt like the most physical, sensual experience I'd ever had. And yet, you know, I got the message that I wasn't there to stay. And I intuitively knew I was to go down this corridor, which was to my left. And so I made my way down the corridor. And actually, that's where I encountered my little toddler son. In fact, he was sleeping in a crib. And gosh, I just swept him up and felt him. And as I held him, I felt an intense presence come up behind me, which was so overwhelming. And I knew I'm in the presence of God, but as I held my little boy, I felt those divine arms wrap around and hold me. And there was a huge download of wisdom, peace, and all of those things. Yeah, that may have been the most profound near-death or visit to the other side of all of them, you know. I've finally come to the conclusion that we're always enough. From a very early age, I always felt inadequate. I wasn't enough. I overachieved to make up for it. I had loving parents. They were divorced, but gosh, they were great, you know. It was self-imposed. That's what I realized is I impose on myself. Self-love is the key. If I can love and accept myself, then I'm filled with love, and therefore then I can give abundantly to others in a way that really does send a ripple effect out of healing and of the world shifting into a higher consciousness. It's the old beautiful truth, love your neighbor as yourself. And I was running, loving the neighbors, and I was looking for the neighbors to give all the love back to me, when in reality, until I loved myself, I had nothing to give. I was always going to be empty until I realized that the light was within me, and that I was the key to my own peace. We all have our challenges, you know. I mean, it wasn't just weeks ago that I was picking myself up off the ground saying, oh my gosh, you know, you know, you get smacked down, and then it has to transform to not only self-love, but just trusting yourself and trusting the universe that this is only an experience. I'm going to learn from it, and I'm certainly going to get through it, and then I'll be bigger, better, and brighter on the other side. And so seeing it as a gift. But when things get hard, that's what I was struggling with. When it gets really hard, sometimes you don't see it as a gift. You're like, okay, this is not good. And then it isn't till hindsight that we say, wow, look what I learned. You know, look what I learned from that. Life is a gift, and that was the biggest shift. I thought it was a test. No, it's a gift, and every step, gosh, let's take it in gratitude, because had it gone another way, I might have still been in that wheelchair. Time became irrelevant. I had a very strong sense that all I had was now. Yesterday is gone, and I have no idea what's going to happen 10 minutes from now. But boy, I have now, and in this sacred moment, I can choose how I'm going to be, how I'm going to project, and what kind of love I'm going to share. And yeah, I don't wear a watch. It just seems irrelevant to me.